Before we dive into the story, comment below where you are watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more HFY sci-fi stories. The galaxy was not built on peace. It was built on hierarchy, on strength, on dominance, and on the silent agreement that weaker species did not decide their own fate. Humanity had learned this lesson early, painfully early. Earth was not destroyed, not because it was spared, but because it was useful. A species that could survive, adapt, and rebuild after extinction-level wars became something the galaxy could not ignore, and something it could not fully control. So instead, Earth was monitored, contained, managed, like a problem that refused to disappear. In the center of this fragile balance stood the Virelian Empire, one of the oldest and most feared civilizations in the known galaxy. And its ruler had only one heir, Princess Seraphine, beautiful, untouchable, and trained since birth to obey the will of the empire, not question it. Her future had already been decided long before she could speak for herself. She would be united with Emperor Kyle of the Dravok Dominion. A political marriage, a cosmic alliance, a transaction disguised as destiny. Seraphine did not love him. She did not even respect him. But she had learned something important. Princesses do not choose, they are chosen, and the galaxy calls that order. On the day the agreement was finalized, the entire Galactic Council gathered in the Orion Nexus chamber. Floating cities outside the glass walls drifted like silent gods. Holographic maps of entire star systems rotated slowly in the air, and at the center throne sat Seraphine, calm, controlled, emotionless. Emperor Kyle stood beside her, smiling like victory was already his. "Soon," he whispered, "you will no longer belong to an empire. You will belong to me." Seraphine did not respond, because responses imply permission, and she had none. But deep inside the chamber, an alert triggered, unknown ship entering restricted space, no diplomatic clearance, no identification signal, just a single transmission. Human delegation requesting audience. The council laughed. A human delegation? At a royal union of empires? Ridiculous. Insulting. Insignificant. But Seraphine did not laugh. Because humans never send delegations unless something was already wrong. Very wrong. The doors of the chamber opened. And everything stopped. A single human walked in. Commander Elias Vance. No royal markings. No escorts. No fear, just silence following him like a shadow. The council watched in amusement. One alien noble whispered, "They sent a soldier to a royal ceremony." Another replied, "He won't survive the introduction." But Elias did not stop, did not hesitate, did not bow. He looked directly at Seraphine, not at the emperor, at her, and said, "You don't have to do this." The entire chamber froze. Emperor Kyle stepped forward immediately. "You dare speak to her without permission?" Elias finally looked at him and replied, "I didn't ask you for permission." A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. No one spoke to Kyle like that, not even other emperors. Seraphine felt something unfamiliar. Not attraction, not curiosity, but disruption. A break in pattern. Humans were not supposed to behave like this. Kyle signaled his guards. Energy weapons activated silently. The chamber was seconds away from execution protocol. But Seraphine raised her hand. "Stop." Every guard froze instantly. Even Kyle looked surprised. She stood slowly and walked toward the human. Every step echoed like judgment. She stopped in front of him. "You are interfering in matters beyond your comprehension," she said. Elias replied calmly, "No. I'm interfering in matters you were never allowed to choose." Silence, heavy silence, dangerous silence. And then it happened. The palace alarms exploded. Not ceremonial, not accidental, real breach. Explosions shook the lower levels. The entire structure trembled. The council panicked instantly. Kyle shouted, "This is impossible!" But Elias was already moving, not away, towards Seraphine. "Stay behind me," he said. Seraphine narrowed her eyes. "I do not take orders from humans." he replied without looking back. Then don't die proving that point. Another explosion hit nearby corridor. The ceiling cracked. Fire spread through the hallway. Security systems collapsed one by one. And suddenly, the strongest princess in the galaxy was trapped inside her own empire. For the first time, she was not protected. She was exposed. And the only thing standing between her and destruction was the human she was never supposed to trust. They ran through collapsing corridors. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed. Metal bent like paper. Seraphine struggled to keep pace. "You should have left me," she said sharply. Elias answered immediately, "I don't leave people behind. That is irrational. That is human." They turned a corner. Explosion ahead. Elias pulled her back instinctively. Debris exploded where she had been standing. For a moment, silence. Then Seraphine spoke quietly. "Why are you doing this?" Elias looked at her. "Because your galaxy decided humans were monsters, without ever meeting one." A pause. I wanted to know if that was true. Something inside Seraphine shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, dangerously. Because belief systems don't break with force. They break with doubt. They escaped through maintenance tunnels. Barely alive, the palace behind them collapsed into burning silence. And for the first time, the galaxy had witnessed something it could not classify. A human saving an alien princess.
But outside the palace, the war had already begun. Emperor Kale had issued a galaxy-wide alert. Human interference, human betrayal, human threat confirmed. Earth was now a target. Total annihilation protocol activated. Seraphine stood beside Elias in the ruins and asked quietly, "What happens now?" Elias looked at the burning sky. "Now," he said, "they decide if they just made the biggest mistake in history." And far across the stars, human fleets began to move, silently, purposefully, not as victims, but as something the galaxy had never calculated correctly. A species that no longer ran, and in the center of two collapsing empires. A princess who was never allowed to choose, and a human who was never supposed to matter, had already changed the fate of the galaxy.